budgeting, we're English students, and we watch Heartbeat Alaska. Yeah!
Heartbeat Alaska is made possible by the following. By Coca-Cola, serving Alaska quality soft drinks since 1937.
And by the Alaska Seafood Marketing Institute, educating consumers and promoting sales of Alaska seafood throughout the U.S. and in international markets.
By Cook Inlet Region Incorporated, an Alaska Native corporation promoting economic and social progress for people throughout the state.
There's a heartbeat louder than thunder. Revolution is in the air. There's a heartbeat deep inside our mother. Are you too cool?
Hello, welcome to Heartbeat Alaska, Native News and Native Entertainment. We're so glad that you joined us. Hello to our good friends in Evansville, Alaska. We're so happy to have you with us. And hello to our good friends in Northway, Alaska, Donna Northway and Ada Sam. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for tuning in to Native News. On today's program, we travel to Arizona to Navajo Nation TV5 and Keelong and his report. And we travel to Bethel, Alaska, where the youngsters are roller skating like crazy, all that plus much more. But first, here's Gary Fife with Native News across the nation.
This is Native News across the nation. I'm Gary Fife. The deadline has come and gone, and so far there have been no whole-scale layoffs of Bureau of Indian Affairs employees or an approval to slash next year's budget for that agency. President Clinton has vowed to veto the Interior Department appropriations bill if it still contains those provisions that he has deemed unfair to Native Americans. The Republicans would then have to fight for a two-thirds majority to override the president's veto. Meanwhile, Senate Committee on Indian Affairs co-chair John Kane of Arizona has been traveling around Native America to hear what tribal leaders have to say about those BIA reductions.
Final numbers, as I understand them being discussed, is that in the Senate bill there was over $200 million that was proposed to be cut. Of those, about $86 million are going to be restored. That's still going to have a devastating impact on.
So far, almost unanimously, Native governments have said the cuts and changes are too fast and too soon. Some reductions in BIA staff, though, may be announced very soon. Alaska's Arctic Slope Regional Corporation has used its business savvy to not only become the economic leader in that region, but it has now topped the Alaska Business Monthly magazine's top 49er list. The Native Profit-Making Corporation has subsidies in oil field services, civil contracting and construction, plus a number of other businesses. The ASRC became the first Native corporation to ever reach that #1 ranking, and President Jacob Adams says the award recognizes years of hard work by their people, and they deserve it. Students from an Oregon tribe have been searching through the tons of material at the Smithsonian Institution in the nation's capital, and their efforts have been rewarded by finding thousands of pages of materials related to their own tribe. The group from the Coquille tribe in Oregon was part of a summer project at the Smithsonian, and their focus was to find materials related to the tribes of southern Oregon, and they were in luck. The tribal leaders say the 30,000 pages the students turned up are an invaluable addition to their tribal history. It's not often that tribal governments sit down with their counterparts in county government to discuss a mutually beneficial arrangement, but two such groups in Montana have done just that. The Tribal Council of the Flathead Reservation has been talking with officials from nearby Lake County to come up with a plan to govern billboards and their placement and impact on the scenery. Both groups have had their own regulations governing size and placement of such signs, but both sides say they want some permanent regulations they can both live with, so they sat down to work it out. And finally, we'll leave you with this bit of Native sports news. Teams from Canada have just won the two top places in this year's annual World Championship Stick Game Tournament at the Powwow in Arlee, Montana. The two Canadian teams from Saddle Lake, Alberta, sang and pointed their way to winnings of $16,000. Up to 900 spectators watched and cheered them on, placing their own bets on the side. And such gambling is considered Class 1 gaming. It's a traditional tribal activity, and it is not subject to federal or state regulations. The tournament took 3 days, with the final battle lasting 3 hours. If you have information or news about your Native group or tribe, please share them with us. Place Heartbeat Alaska on your mailing list. This is Native News Across the Nation, and for Heartbeat Alaska, I'm Gary Fife.
Great Spirit, grant me vision that I may not go wrong and find myself in prison of things I have not done. Teach me the secret that I might see. Fill my heart with compassion to love my enemy. Mother Earth will feed our hunger. Father Sky will love her well. Make me worthy of this vision that no human tongue could ever tell. The winds of life blowing four directions. The sacred waters flow to the sea. The eagle flies high as any mountain. Keep us free. Give me strength to learn a lesson. Make me wise to understand what it takes to walk in beauty as I learn to walk this sacred land. The winds of life blowing four directions. The sacred waters flow to the sea. The eagle flies high as any mountain. me.
Oh, takas. Oh.
Aula kaskahta. Slitch. Sakakayu is ino. Utah. Iachtalakayu. Slitch. Tahoyu ano kolis katik. Tiktuurahi no anula kolita.
Before we move on, I'd like to invite you to a memorial potluck powwow for the late Dr. William Richards. It'll be held this Sunday here in Anchorage, Alaska at the Lucy Cuddy Center at UAA. It's a potluck. The main dish is provided. Please bring a side dish. In Arizona, Key Long brings us his report out of Navajo Nation TV 5, Window Rock, Arizona. It's a unique TV station. All the programming is done in the Navajo language, with the exception of Heartbeat Alaska, of course. And we're very proud, by the way, to be included in their broadcasting. Here's a sample of Key Long reporting to the Navajo people in the Navajo language. The Navajo Nation has 250,000 members, many of which speak their native tongue.
Hanada so kizdonada and hitnagi, Kurosaga Hotzando and Hilnada Wheelnet Ole, Kuron Navajo Nation Television 5, Yol Ya, Kuron Hilnda Wheel, Shin, Shiaki, Ya, Key Long, Kurobada Hanegishi, Kondet, A Lebanda, Stegi, Ben Hilda Wheelnet Ole, Narrate. Is the Higi Ohas Reda to Royal Caleda Yabaha Old Day, Strata Your Culture, the artist Ningea, Stone.
And now here's the Heartbeat Alaska News Update from Key Long in English, of course.
Yate Heartbeat Alaska. This is Key Long from Window Rock, Arizona, the Navajo Nation. My topic today will be the Red Ribbon Relay Run that took place recently. The 4th annual multicultural relay run sponsored by the Navajo Nation Division of Health and the Department of Behavioral Health Services took place here in the states of New Mexico and Arizona on September 7th through September 16, 1995, 26 Indian communities participated in this annual run. 4 years ago, plans were put in place to confront the problems of drug abuse and various mind-altering drugs, including alcohol. This run involved not only the Navajo Nation, but the Zuni tribe, the Pueblos Laguna, Acoma, Taos, Pewaukee, Isleta, Cochiti, Sandia, Santo Domingo, and also the Jemez Pueblos. The sponsor from the Navajo Nation, Mr. James Sandville, says there was a lot of support from these Indian communities. The main focus of the run was to make all people living in and around Indian country to become aware of the effects of drugs, the prevention, and also to come together and to start confronting the problem. Mr. Sandoval also added there is so much interest that a meeting is already underway to plan next year's Red Ribbon Relay Run. Such other Indian tribes as the Apaches in New Mexico will be invited in next year's run. The run came from all 4 cardinal directions and continued into the city of Albuquerque, New Mexico, where the run concluded with a ceremony and speeches from various Indian leaders. Our Navajo Nation President, Mr. Albert Hale, was also on hand. He congratulated all the participants, especially the runners. Thank you for tuning in to Heartbeat Alaska. This is Key Long reporting from Window Rock, Arizona. Also, happy birthday to Jeannie Green. Thank you very much for watching.
Hey, Key Long, thanks for the greeting. We're on our way to Bethel, Alaska right now, where the youngsters are rock and rolling roller skating. Say that 3 times fast. One Friday night each month in Bethel, Alaska is a favorite for some of these children. For children ages 3 to 7, 2 one-hour sessions are offered with free drinks and popcorn included in the admission price. Is it Friday roller skating night? That's the first question heard repeatedly from kindergarten and first grade students as it nears the monthly roller skating night. Roller skating night was originally established as a fundraising event for preschool materials. However, it's turned into much more than that. For the parents, it beats any spectator sport. And for the children, well, it's full steam ahead, bumps and bangs included.
Fire can turn any room in your house into a death trap. Make sure your family knows 2 ways out of every room. Plan ahead for fire.
This message was brought to you by the Yukon-Kuskokwim Health Corporation as part of the National Community Volunteer Fire Safety Project.
Alcohol continues to devastate the lives of Native Americans. On the last Heartbeat Alaska, we reported a vote in Bethel and Barrow. In Bethel, that community remains damp. The vote in Barrow, Alaska is in limbo, with most of the votes leaning towards a wet community. Here now is another segment of Tears of the Raven by award-winning producers Baker Jennings Films.
Today, Alaska's natives suffer from a plague brought on by the modern world. A plague of alcoholism, depression, and suicide that is killing the people, particularly the young.
Alcohol abuse and suicide is pretty intensive in the villages in Alaska. And, just last month, I know two people that try to commit suicide.
This epidemic has spread across the face of a state almost twice the size of Texas. A state that stretches from north to south for a distance as far as Duluth, Minnesota is from New Orleans. And east to west from Eastport, Maine to San Francisco. There are fewer than 600,000 people in this vast area. 85,000 of those are natives, many of whom live in tiny rural villages, which are hundreds, sometimes thousands of miles away from the urban centers of Anchorage, Fairbanks, and Juneau. Many of these villages suffer from the ravages of alcoholism. This stark contemporary reality is in contrast to Alaska's great natural wealth and beauty, which first lured white settlers. Missionaries, gold miners, loggers, and explorers brought with them a lifestyle that temptingly beckoned to the Indians and the Eskimo, and ultimately changed the way they worshipped, the language they spoke, the way they educated their children. Before the coming of the white man and the driving of the silver spike, the Alaska natives lived off the land and from the sea. Hunting, trapping, fishing. They believed the stories of Raven, their trickster god, which taught them how to live a life of abundance in this way. He taught them that all things were their brothers, and that they were all connected by history and tradition, one generation to another. The clan provided social order and balance. From infancy, the children were taught how they could contribute to the world around them. Very few Raven songs the people sang were songs of sorrow. But then the strangers came to this land called Alaska. The Spanish came up the western coast of America. The English sailed into the southern inlets, naming them as they passed. Turnagain Arm, Cook Inlet, Prince William Sound. The Russians came from the northwest, moving island by island, killing seals and otters as they came. In 1741, Peter the Great sent Vitus Bering to these shores, and for 50 years the Russian traders plundered the land, almost wiping out the Aleut people. The ancient patterns of village life were shattered. Diseases never known to the people became rampant. Alcohol was introduced and numbed the senses. Wholesale numbers of people died. It seemed to the people they had become disconnected from the past, from the earth, which was the basis of their spirituality.
The influence of the missionaries in the Athabascan culture, I think some of the good aspects of it is education. The bad part is the total elimination of the native Athabascan language. Our parents weren't allowed to talk to their children in Athabascan. Therefore, we have a whole generation of people my age group who don't know Athabascan. Therefore, we can't pass the language down and the culture down to our children. And we lose a lot of the meaning of the native way of life.
When I was growing up 20, 25, 30 years ago, you know, everybody had a job in the family. Starting from the smallest to the eldest in the family, you know, I had to cook dog food, cut wood, pack water. The older kids had to go out, check the rabbit snares for food and stuff like that. Nowadays, kids don't do anything.
Anchorage International Airport, and the largest seaplane base in the world. Each day, dozens of aircraft leave here on the first leg of one of the most lucrative enterprises in Alaska, the business of smuggling alcohol to the rural villages. Many villages have voted to go dry and others to go damp, which means they prohibit the sale of alcohol, but allow its importation for private use. From this, an enormous mail-order business has emerged. To the town of Bethel alone, nearly $1 million worth of liquor was imported in a single year, much of it to middlemen who bootleg it to the population. Although many pilots have begun to refuse liquor shipments to the villages, the practice continues.
City of Gold. There is a city that looks over the valley of death, and its glory has never been told. Where the land is the light in the midst of the night, in that beautiful city of gold, where the sun never sets, and the leaves never fade, and the righteous forever will shine like the stars in that beautiful city of gold. There will be no more sorrow, pain, sickness, or death, and the saints there will never grow. How I long for that city where never comes a night, in that beautiful city of gold, where the sun never sets, and the leaves never fade, and the righteous forever will shine like the stars in that beautiful city of gold. Sitting here, nipping at you, I'm not talking about this here, I'm not going to knock it for me.
Thank you for joining us once again for Heartbeat Alaska. Join us again next week when we travel to Galena, Alaska for their Yukon Jamboree. Also, we'll be taking a look at a documentary called More Than Words about the preservation of the Eyak language. Give me a call, won't you? 907-563-7440. We're always happy to hear from you, and thank you so much for your letters. For Heartbeat Alaska, I'm Jeannie Green, waiting for your video. I'll see you next week.
Something that you don't want to talk about.